In this video, we're going to show you exactly how we designed, assembled and installed a custom-made cupboard and drawer system for our Toyota Hilux Canopy camper, starting from a 3D scan and some CAD drawings and ending with a classy, solid and extremely utilitarian system that makes our camper so much more livable. But how did we get here in the first place? A few months ago, Nicole and I made the decision to change things up a bit, selling our canopy and rooftop tent and fitting a canopy camper, which essentially combines the tent and canopy together and allows for more internal space. When we made this change, it required us to get rid of our old drawer systems, fridge slide and canopy cupboards, leaving us with, well, nothing inside. And when we departed on our shakedown trip, which is documented in a 6-part series on this channel, we quickly learned that having all of our stuff simply dumped into the back was a nightmare. We needed to build a cupboard system for the camper, and we needed to do it before our next big trip to the Kalahari. In my Canopy Camper introduction video, you will have seen us build a rough cardboard mock-up of what we wanted our cupboard layout to look like. And as Nicole and I discussed this on our shakedown trip, we eventually settled on a concept that we both liked, and it was time to put our plan into motion. But how? We would need some expert help on this one. To the rescue comes Riaan and Juan, and trust me when I say, what you're going to see in this video would not have been possible without them. Juan reached out to me over email, having heard that I needed help, and despite not knowing me from a bar of soap, offered to give up his time, effort and tools to make sure that all the woodwork was done properly. Juan lives about 10 minutes away from me and builds kitchen cabinets for a living, so needless to say, he's probably the perfect guy for this job. Riaan is a guy I've known for a bit longer. We met through 4x4ing and then found out that we also both share a passion for shooting. So that's about a 99% overlap in interests, and we've just got along well ever since. Riaan is an engineer, and on the side he builds some 4x4 components like the bash plate that's on my Bucky. These are for sale at LA Sport and have saved me from some big impacts a couple times, so they're definitely worth checking out. But enough introductions, let's get to the build itself, shall we? It all starts with a state-of-the-art 3D scanner. Riaan had offered to help with some CAD drawings, but he wanted to get some very precise measurements of the canopy first, so out comes this beast. This thing works by using a bunch of sensors to detect its exact position and then paints a picture of whatever you're scanning, within a tolerance of 67 microns. So needless to say, we weren't going to have a problem getting our dimensions right. These sensors on the side of the Bucky help compensate for any movement of the Bucky itself as our weight shifts around inside. Without these, everything would have been a little bit wonky. Riaan's plan is to design the cupboard system around the scanned interior of the Bucky so that we use every square centimeter of space. Some of the aftermarket systems out there are scaled down to be a universal fit for double cab Buckies, but they don't use space efficiently. With this, we'll be able to shape the framework and drawer boxes to fit tightly around the canopy brackets, water pipes, wheel arches, and any other obstruction that the scanner picks up. We also make a scan of the fridge with the lid open and closed so that we can factor in the fridge when designing the framework and once again ensure that there is zero wasted space. Next comes the design work itself, and although Nicole and I had a concept of what we wanted to do, we still had plenty of decisions to make. One option was to build everything out of wood, which would have probably saved us a bit of money, but we didn't want to cut any corners and eventually settled on using a combination of aluminium and wood. The framework would be built out of extruded aluminium for extra strength and durability. The drawer boxes would be made from 12mm birch ply, and the tabletop would be made from 16mm bamboo. We had a series of meetings in person and over Teams to iron out the small details, things like where to put the drawer runners, what mechanisms to use to open and close the drawers, etc. The aluminium would be ordered from Modular Assembly Technology, also about 10 minutes from our house. They not only make extrusion profiles, but they also make all the connecting elements to join stuff together and allow you to download CAD files for each part. So once Riaan had designed the framework, it was as easy as sending a cut list and parts list to modular assembly, placing an order, and voila. Everything arrives like a kit of Meccano. It's kind of like opening Christmas presents.
Well, this is where the real fun starts. We're going to be building Meccano from tomorrow evening. We decided to actually send a cut list to modular assembly and to get them to cut everything to length and to drill and tap. So everything's going to basically be the perfect size to the nearest fraction of a millimeter for us to put everything together and get those perfect clearances, and we won't have to struggle with cutting at a later stage, which is great. The way this works is that a lot of these cuts are already angled, so you can see here the perfect angle, and all we need to do is use some of the connecting pieces that we ordered, corner blocks and T-nuts and all kinds of things. It's getting dark, we're gonna call it a day for now, and tomorrow we'll get to work putting all this together, which I think is going to be probably one of the most fun parts of this entire build.
The next evening is go time as Juan and Riaan arrive and get to work. Our goal for tonight is to get the framework and floor panel assembled and to make sure everything fits. It's fingers crossed as we finally get to lay the foundations, so to speak.
Things are finally happening now after weeks of planning. Juan has just come over with the floor panel, which we've cut out of 18mm shutterboard, and it's going to form basically the foundation of everything we build above it. So we've got 4 mounting points where we can actually bolt this floor panel down just to hold it down, and then the framework will be built on top of that. We've just fitted our battery box at the back here to check if everything fits nicely and we've got enough clearance above the inverter, and yes we do. We've got a good sort of 5 to 10 centimeters above here, so we're all good on that front. And Riaan will be coming over a little bit later, and we're gonna get going with our Meccano building and probably start putting some framework together, and that will give us a really good idea of how everything fits in the space and what we need to do as far as the woodwork side of it, building the drawers, getting all our fitment correct, and then eventually running all the electrical cables from the switch panel all the way to the front over here. So getting very excited, and yeah, from here it's all fun.
When Riaan arrives, we get to work putting together the aluminium frame. He knows this design so well after staring at it for weeks, so he knows exactly where everything needs to go and what connecting elements will be used for each corner.
So if they did their job in cutting these, this should be 90 degrees.
Some of these parts are quite ingenious. A turn of an Allen key pulls these surfaces together and makes a really solid connection. And of course this will only get stronger as more components are connected in a 3-dimensional shape. Right, everything's coming together nicely. The nice thing about ordering parts from a company that specializes in modular assembly, it's in the name, is that everything is modular and it's easy to assemble. So we've got all our pre-cut aluminium pieces, and then we've got different connections. Like for example, this connects 3 pieces of aluminium in a sort of square configuration. This is a 90-degree L bracket, and we've got these other parts that essentially come from the center of the extrusion and just connect these angled parts together, and just, you know, with a few Allen keys here you can tighten them up. So it's quite simple, and it's really fun to kind of look at the rendering on CAD or SolidWorks and then see it come to life, grab the pieces we need and start fitting it all together. So yeah, we're having fun. Nicole's supplying us with snacks to keep us going, and hopefully we can start to see some 3-dimensional shapes coming together soon. Time for the moment of truth. Would this frame actually fit properly? If not, we may have a problem. It was tight with only about a millimeter to spare, but that's the beauty of the 3D scanner. There was just no guesswork involved at all.
So what you're saying, Riaan, is put the L in, mark it, take it out, put the T-nut in from underneath, and then have a...
I think that's probably going to be
the
stronger than
strongest.
just screwing.
Yeah.
in.
Because even screwing in, it will be able to pull out, but with a T-nut in, it will
Then it will
never pull out. To save yourself trouble, good idea to build the next one.
Yeah.
Put it in, mark all your holes out, take this thing out one time, put all the T-nuts, drill, do all of that, which I can help you from like lunchtime tomorrow with that.
Perfect.
We also took some time to assess the drawings and to check where the draw runners, drawers and tabletops would need to go. The framework was only phase 1. All the woodwork was still to come.
And I mean, even here, Matt, we can go neat around cut, so it goes all nice and neat.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much force on this pipe. I think
we'll cut.
degree would be...
Cut around this. I would suggest put a little bend in there if you can.
Yeah, I think so.
We had one issue with the draw runner making contact with the canopy bracket, so we had to make a small modification to the bracket, but thankfully this was a pretty straightforward problem to overcome. Next was to check if the fridge fitted correctly within the framework, and for this we first had to fit the battery box properly in place. We'd factored in the width of the batteries when designing everything, but it was the inverter that made me stress a bit, as it was a few millimeters wider than we all expected it to be. So it would be touch and go as to whether there would be enough space around it or not.
Like a glove, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Happy that everything fits, Juan and I get to work bolting down the floor panel and the battery box. We used the existing mounting points from our old double drawer system and simply put some 8mm bolts through to those, and then tightened the battery box down to the floor panel. Meanwhile, Riaan set to work assembling the other half of the frame. These are 2 mirror copies of each other, so the second one was quick and easy. And that's a wrap for our first assembly day. Well, today it comes down to this. We've got our framework in. We need to do a few minor adjustments to the battery box to make things fit behind the fridge a bit better. And then we start on the wood. We have to build the drawers. We've got to put the drawers in. We've got to start cutting the bamboo tops. And we've got to start bolting all of this down to the floor. So, sun's come out. It's a beautiful day. Join us. Let's get some stuff done.
Juan did something that probably helps in the long run, and he actually put these together last night, which saves us a bit of time, and I'm super happy with how these turned out. These are now these are the bottom drawers, right? The bigger ones. Yeah. So these are the bigger drawers, and you can see now how we've designed these. These are the camp cover sort of canvas clear top bags that we use all the time for patterning stuff, and they happen to be the perfect height, the perfect width, and everything can fit nice and modular. Plus we've got this area at the back of the drawer here where we can put sort of rolls of tin foil or all that stuff, so it's perfect. But now we've got to install everything, so we're gonna go ahead and just find all our mounting points for the frames, bolt them down, and then we're gonna start fitting these in, get those rollers in, and yeah, get moving with the fun part, putting everything together.
The frames would need to be bolted down to the floor panel, and to do this we mounted 6 L brackets on each frame half. These bolt right into the aluminium using M6 bolts and a T-nut. Extremely easy.
Okay, so we've got 1, 2, not past, so this is where the fridge space is basically. 1, 2, and 2, 6.
That looks like enough.
Okay.
Should be good.
So we can put this one in and then do the other ones along. Okay. Then we mark them all.
The frames get refitted, the mounting points get marked on the floor panel, and then the floor panel comes out again for the holes to be drilled. With the holes drilled where we want them, we hammer M8 T-nuts to the bottom of each hole.
Once again, we are putting T-nuts in the bottom of this board, and then from the top we will drop a screw in on top of those brackets and just mount the whole structure to each side of the board. I can't claim credit for this idea because I took a lot of inspiration from the goose gear system on X Overland's video. They show sort of how everything's put together, and it just helped sort of make the process of figuring out how to fit everything in the Canopy camper a little bit easier because it's been done before. That being said though, we've done things a little bit differently to the way that Goose Gear's done it. I think we've actually made a better design that uses the space better. But yeah, let's get everything in, and then we have to start fitting the runners on to get the drawers in and stuff like that. But so far, looking good.
One thing we had to decide on is how to tie down the fridge. We decided to make use of the modularity of the aluminium and just use some of these front runner M8 tie-down bolts. These slide in to where we want them and then get tightened down in place. You'll see a little later how we strap the fridge to these. But we've got some woodwork to do before we can actually install the frames where we want them.
So what we've done here for these side panels is cut them out of 12mm birch ply. We've put some countersunk screws in, and then on the back we've got these T-nuts, which are, if you watch my other shooting channel, we use M-lock, the M-lock system to attach accessories to a rifle chassis. This is basically like an M-lock screw, except it's on an M6 screw, and these fit right into these slots. And then when you tighten the screw, they turn at a right angle, lock in place, and hold everything in. So it makes it really easy because you don't have to like slide them in from the side or drill a hole to get them to access in. They just fit right in and close up. Really cool system.
If you're wondering what these panels are for, they're basically the walls between the drawer compartments and the pop-top storage compartments that sit in front of them. We only need one side closed off because the bucket tray and the fridge make up the other three walls. Next come the runners. They bolt directly into the aluminium, once again just using T-nuts and M6 bolts. With the corresponding runners fitted to the drawer boxes, it's time to start putting it all together.
Right, so here's the ingenious mounting system that we've used. Everything there is just bolted straight into the floor with T-nuts on the back end, and then over here we had some brackets made that basically at the bottom bolt into this piece here, and then in the top just line up there, and then up here we'll just put our bamboo board mounted on top so that it's flush with this, and that should look really good. But yeah, it's solid as a rock, like extremely solid, and both sides are in. So from here what we need to do is add our drawers, add our tops, and then the fridge is going to come right over here, and there's the drawer. So pretty cool.
You can see here how we've designed the drawers to get the maximum space possible. The bottom drawers are smaller, limited by the wheel arches, while the top drawers are wider, running all the way to the fridge. We can fit a lot in here. Any space that's not being used by the drawers becomes part of the storage compartments on either side of the fridge.
Well, made some really good progress today, but we're not quite done yet, so tomorrow we're gonna try and wrap it up. Right now though, the Springboks are playing Ireland. Let's go upstairs and watch the magic.
The next morning, and like clockwork, Juan rocks up with his mobile workshop, and we're able to hit the ground running once again. Today is about making everything look good and doing all of our finishing touches, and that starts with a couple rear panels to hide the aluminium. And while Juan continues on with the bamboo tops, Nicole gets the spray gun fired up for some painting.
So today, the guys have been doing all the hard work. I get to do the fun stuff now of just doing some painting. So a friend of mine's borrowed a spray gun that we've been doing some testing, and we've done like a makeshift little like spray paint area in here. So we're gonna do the first piece. We've done a few testers and we're finally feeling like it's gonna look good.
Meanwhile, the bamboo top is coming along really nicely. I can't tell you how glad I am to have help from somebody with proper tools. This would have looked like the remains of a shipwreck if I'd done it myself. As you can see, the sun is out today in full force, so we are doing a quick test of our DAG Outdoor 200 watt solar panel. We're running this extension cable, and then we've plugged it into our solar input, which is basically right here, and there you go, we're getting a solar charge. So basically when we want to use a panel on the roof, we just unplug this plug, which is the solar blanket. We plug this one in, and this one runs up the back of this board into the roof, and we've got an Anderson plug that's pre-wired into the roof of the Canopy camper, so we can just fit a panel on the roof if we want to do that. But yeah, the solar blanket's also nice because if you're parking in the shade, which is what you try to do when you're camping, especially in a hot place, then a solar panel on the roof might not be the best thing. A lot of surface area up there, but if it's in the shade, it doesn't help. So that's where the solar blanket comes in, and we'll probably just take this with us wherever we go. I'm getting really tired of carrying this fridge in and out, but thankfully this is the last time. We're actually going to be strapping it in for good now.
Fridge is in, it's tied down and feels really solid, and the spacing around it is good. So that's probably the one thing I was most concerned about. Everything at the back here is very tight with that battery box in play, but clearances seem good, and yeah, it's all starting to kind of fit together today. So Jean's just finishing up with the bamboo tops. We're going to fit them in a moment, and we're waiting for the paint to dry on the panels. So when it all comes together, I think we're going to start to see the kind of polished finished product, and I'm really excited to see that.
The bamboo tops fit perfectly, but there are a couple of finishing touches that still need to be done. The lids for the storage areas next to the fridge have to be cut out. These will be magnetic lids, and the goal is to have a seamless look with the lids looking like part of the table. We also have leftover laminate flooring from our house, so we cut these to size and they become our floor. This looks really good if you ask me. Now we just have to do the dog test to see if he'll fit in here. This will have to be his sleeping area when we're camping. And he's getting big.
There you go, you can sleep in here. Hey, you can sleep in here.
Hey boy! Texas! Hello,
Yeah, you'll be fine in here. You'll be fine.
Something that we had to work around was the locking mechanism for the canopy. We had to make some cutouts so that the canopy locks could close properly, and this turned out perfect. And talking about canopy locks, so the plan is to use these canopy locks for the drawers. The only problem is they're not really made for plywood. They're actually made for thin aluminium sheeting. So we're going to have to think outside the box a little bit, no pun intended. These have these brackets, which essentially we're going to take off, and we're going to make our own brackets. And then we're simply going to pull the screw that normally attaches to this bracket through our other flat bracket, and it will kind of pull it into the inside piece of plywood. So we've made a plan, and it looks like it's going to work really well, which is great because I'm so used to using these, and I think they'll do really well and look really good on those drawers. We were also going to use these for those kind of pop top lids at the back, but we probably just gonna try something else and keep it a bit simpler and use some magnets, and we've put a little hole to put your finger in and just lift off the magnet. So
good solution for both scenarios.
With our first painted panels now dry, we're able to fit them in place, and man, they look good. Unfortunately, it would be a few more days before the last panels could be fitted properly, as we had to wait for paint to dry and for a few more mounting screws to arrive, but here are a few clips from the upcoming Kalahari trip showing the final product. I have to admit, it turned out even better than I could have imagined or hoped for, and I can't wait to share the series with you as we head out on yet another epic adventure. So with that, we wrap things up just as we're starting to lose light. It's the 11th hour. Tomorrow we take the vehicle back into LA Sport, where we're going to be fitting a power brake, big brake kit and a set of airbags. So stay tuned for that. We're going to put that up in a separate video. But once again, I just want to say I am so blown away when I look at how kind Riaan and Juan have been throughout all of this. When I contacted Riaan and asked if he could help with this, I expected, you know, maybe an hour or two of advice or a little bit of work going into it. He spent days and days and days perfecting everything, going back and forth to the suppliers, getting parts and helping to build, even though he's really busy. And Juan spending, once again, days and days and days of his time reaching out to me by email, expecting nothing back. Like, the kindness of these guys have completely blown me away. So I'm going to put their businesses down below if you want to support them in any way. I know that I'm going to be supporting them from now on, just seeing their work ethic and their attention to detail and all of that stuff. And yeah, the fruit is right behind you. This thing has turned out even better than I expected. Yeah, Goose Gear's got nothing on this, I have to say it. But yeah, in a week's time, less than a week's time, like 4 or 5 days, we head off on our Kalahari trip. That'll be the real test. Over the next few days, I'm going to be just checking torque on all the screws and making sure everything's solid. Obviously starting to pack everything, but the real test is going to be that trip when we go over those hectic corrugations and rough roads. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, do it. We've got some really cool stuff coming, and I'll see you then.